Welcome, writers, readers, and friends to the Authors Talking Bookish podcast. I'm Donna Norman Carbone, author of All That Is Sacred.
And I'm Hope Gibbs, author of Where the Grass Grows Blue.
We're two debut writers traditionally published by a small publishing house, bringing to you all the experiences that we as authors learn the hard way, so you don't have to.
We'll give you insights from the inception of a book idea to publication and beyond. And along the way, we'll share our love of books from the writer's perspective.
Hello, folks. Welcome back. It's episode 74 in season 4. And today we're talking about 10 tips for deep revision. I'm Donna Carbone, and I'm joined by Hope Gibbs. Hi, Hope. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Donna?
I am great. Looking forward to the 4th of July.
Yes.
I'm going to see Third Eye Blind in a couple of days. Do you like them?
I don't dislike them, but for the life of me, I can't remember. I don't know one of their songs. I'm sure if I heard it, I would know it.
Yeah, you definitely would.
Where are you going to go see them?
Mohegan Sun, which is a casino in Connecticut.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's fun. Are you going? I'm sure you'll be on the boat at some point.
Oh yeah, we've been on the boat. The boat went in the water the beginning of June. So yeah, we've been on the boat. We've been enjoying the sunshine.
That sounds fantastic.
And our granddaughter, who's yet to go on the boat, but boy, is she growing up quick. She's 6 months old already.
Is she crawling?
No, she scoots though. She definitely rolls back and forth.
Yeah.
And she scoots a little bit. I think she's going to walk before she's going to crawl, actually.
You know, I had one of those that
on her feet.
Yeah, I had one that didn't really want to crawl. And if he wanted to go somewhere, he would just roll. So
yeah.
I was like, okay.
Yeah, that's what she's doing right now.
So how's the weather up in Connecticut? Is it nice or is it really hot?
It's beautiful and hot.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to getting my granddaughter in the pool. We bought her this kind of pool float. She has yet to go in the water. When it gets a little bit, the water's still cold. We don't have a heater on our pool. Yeah. So we need another week or so of this hot weather, and we'll all be in.
Okay. Well, sounds like you are having a wonderful first month of retirement.
Yes, I am.
So go ahead.
Ask what's going on with you.
Just got back from Mexico a little bit, a few days ago, and then playing golf. Yeah. I am learning that it's kind of fun. Yeah. It's very frustrating. Yeah. But it's opening up a whole new thing for me to do now that I'm a country girl, as I would say, because I do live in the country now. It's fun. My husband and I will go out and we'll golf for 2 hours and come back and have dinner and watch TV. I feel like we are definitely in that stage of our life, and watching a fascinating show, by the way. I know we always talk about books, but it came out in 2022, had not heard about it, came up on my Instagram feed, and it was called The Offer. And it's a 10-part miniseries on Paramount. And it's all about The Godfather. Yes. And I love it because it's how they got The Godfather made. Mm-hmm. You get to know the backstory because, I don't know if everyone knows, but it was a book before it was made into a movie. And it's fascinating because the author,
Mario Puzo,
he is very much part of this movie, and it's just fascinating to see how it was made. And there were so many twists and turns. So I would suggest if anyone's looking for a TV show that is about kind of a book, this would be a great one to watch. Have you watched it?
I have. I thought it was phenomenal. And I love Miles Teller, who is a character. He's great. Yeah. I'm also watching a series now based on a book, The Lord of the Flies, which I loved that book. And I only taught it once or twice because I didn't teach the younger grades that much. But oh my God, is this show good? It's only 4 episodes. I'm on episode 3.
What streaming service?
I think it's Netflix.
Okay.
I always lose track, but I think it's Netflix, but very good.
Can I make a confession?
Yeah.
That book scared me. And I don't know if I could ever, I don't know that it was tough for me. I don't know if I could watch that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting.
Well, speaking of actual books, what are you reading right now?
I am reading Writing Creatively and Soul by Sue Monk Kidd, who is one of my favorite contemporary writers. She wrote The Secret Life of Bees, which is a comp for my book of Lies and Honey. And she also wrote one of my favorite books of all time, The Book of Longings. It's really an interesting book. It's kind of part memoir, part about writing, also about how the development of her spiritual self paralleled the development of her writing self, which was really interesting to me. I love like digging into people's spirituality. I love past lives, which is in my upcoming book. I like tarot cards. I like all that stuff. So this is fascinating to me. She's writing about she took a course on Jungian philosophy. Carl Jung, I think, is the philosopher. Jung, I don't know if I'm saying it right. But yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Nice. Okay, I'll have to check that out because I loved The Secret Life of Bees.
Yeah.
I thought that was beautiful. I read that, gosh, years ago. It's got to be at least 15 years ago since I read it. But
yeah, she's a beautiful writer.
Yeah, she is a beautiful writer.
What are you reading these days?
So I stumbled across this. It came up on my Instagram feed. I feel like everything's coming up on my Instagram feed. And it's called Strangers, and it is by Belle Burden. I think that you would have to be under a rock if you haven't heard her because she is out there everywhere. And it's about a woman who her husband, she thought she had a perfectly happy marriage. The beginning of COVID, like I think we were a week or two into COVID, she gets a phone call and a man is explaining that her husband is having an affair with his wife. And by the next morning, he had packed his bags and left her. And I just remember it just really took me back to how scared we were all at the beginning of COVID. And I cannot imagine having to go through that because I have been divorced before. And it's terrible any time to get divorced. But I started reading it and I sat down and read it in one morning. I read it on, and I'm a very fast reader. But I read it on a Sunday morning, and it was it's a very interesting book. And she's very interesting as well. I've watched a couple of not a full podcast that she's been on, but some clips from it. But it's a very interesting book.
Huh. I'm glad you said that because that one's been on my radar. So I think now I'm going to read it.
And here's the thing. It doesn't matter if you've either been divorced or not. I feel like as a woman, if you are going into any kind of relationship with someone, you should read it because it is eye-opening because she doesn't hold back. She admits that she is from a well-to-do family. She had money, but when right before they got married, she was going to have him sign a prenup and he wouldn't sign it. And he kind of convinced her not to. And in the end, he was able to keep all the wealth that he had. So her money supported them early on. And so I'm not going to give it all away, but before you go into any kind of relationship, you have that, the glow and the love. But you really should remember to watch out for yourself. It's a cautionary tale of, make financial decisions before they're made for you, if that makes sense.
Wow.
So I would definitely suggest, and it's not a very terribly long book, but it was very interesting. So I recommend that.
Interesting. Thank you. So should we dive into our episode topic for today?
Yes. Why don't you tell everyone what we're talking about today?
Sure. We're going to give you 10 tips for deep revision. I was thinking about this topic since I have been in revision for my third book and also my fourth book. And I just thought every time I do something a little bit different based on the book that I'm revising and kind of what the needs of the book are. And I thought it would be important to share as many revision tips as we could.
Okay, well, let's get into it.
Okay.
So these are 10 tips for deep revision of your first draft. One of the first things you can do is walk away before you begin revision. Give yourself distance, maybe a month, so you can come back with fresh perspective. And this has actually helped me because I am revising that second book, and I haven't been looking at it because I had a big move and whatnot. And I am now seeing it in a different light. So what about, have you done that where you've just stepped away for a month from something?
Yeah, I always do. I would say a month or longer, even
Yeah.
to the point where I almost forget where I start and kind of, I know the general story, obviously, but yeah, I think the longer you step away, the better off you are because the more objective you could be.
100%.
Yeah.
So another tip. Why don't you go through this one, Donna?
So, the first time that you approach your draft after you walk away, I would just read through and take notes. No matter what that looks like, I tend to write my very first draft in Scrivener. And then what I do is I compile it and move it over to Google Docs. And so in Google Docs, what I do is I write comments in the margin based on just my knee jerk thoughts and reactions as I'm reading through. I really do not make changes, but I will note where I got bored, where I stopped reading, where I was really engrossed.
Mhm.
Um, Things of that nature, even like missing, like if there are gaps or ideas that I have to infuse, and I'll just compile all those notes in the margin before I start changing anything,
Yeah.
because then I'll go back and read the notes and I might have written a note on page 15 and I get to page 80 and that note on page 15 doesn't make sense anymore.
That's a really good idea. I have not written notes, but I love the part on where did you get hooked?
Yeah.
Because that's the whole point. If you can't hook a reader, then everything else is for naught. So
Right.
that is a really good idea about writing the notes on Google Docs.
Yeah.
Another thing that can help is identifying your core story. What is the story really about? And then you can identify what needs to be done to reach that goal, and then identify who changes and to what degree. And that's the other thing that with writing is who changes, like your characters. How are they changing? Why are they changing? Because you don't really, as a reader, I don't want to read a static character where they're exactly the way they are at the beginning to the end. So what are some tips do you have for this, Donna?
Well, I think this actually goes along with something that comes a little bit later on in our tips. But sometimes I will read through just honing in on one character to kind of look at what their arc looks like throughout the story. So, character A, I might highlight green. Character B, I might highlight blue. And then just go through and just do a read through of all the green sections
Mm-hmm.
just to kind of see where that character goes.
It's a good idea as well. And especially because, like, did you do this with your first book? Because you have so many characters in that book.
I did. I did. Um, yeah, at that point, the first time I did it, it was more because each chapter was written in a different voice. And so I wanted to make sure that the voices were distinct.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I do that often for different reasons. Different books have different problems. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like my first book, I think the problem was in the voices of the character. And then once I changed the voice to one narrator, I wanted to make sure that the conflicts and the stakes were appropriate throughout between the narrator and the other characters. In my second book, I had the 3 POVs. So that I wanted to make sure there was continuity there. So I did different kinds of highlighting there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What about another tip?
So, focus on big ideas first. Don't concern yourself at the line level in terms of, is this sentence working? Is this word working? Fix the big ideas. Are there plot holes? Are there things that don't make sense from one part of the story to the next part of the story? Are there pacing issues? I will go through and write down how many pages are in each chapter
Mhm.
just to make sure they're, approximately the same. And if I have a 30-page chapter versus an 11-page chapter, I'm going to start looking at the pacing of both of those. Is the 11-page going too fast? Is the 30-page going too slow? So, fixing those big things before you get to the nitty-gritty.
Yeah. Plot holes. I didn't really have a plot hole issue with my first book, but I found with my second one, I did.
Yeah.
And so that was something that was difficult. And it's still, because I'm still right now, I'm refining it. That is something that you have to identify, because once I did, I was like, okay, I think that's maybe part of it that's kind of holding me back. But you have to look at it. You have to look at it very, it can't be emotional, because I feel
Mhm.
like sometimes as a writer, I'm so emotional and I want to keep that, or I don't want to do, I don't want to cut that part out or whatever. But with revising, you have to be kind of brutal. You have to be brutal with yourself, that even though this scene is a beautiful scene, it
Mhm.
doesn't work, or it's
Yeah.
not moving forward. So
Mhm.
that was one thing that I did have to cut in my first book. I had to cut a couple of scenes that I loved,
Yeah.
but it wasn't helping. It was actually dragging the pacing down. So I still remember it, but it wasn't worth it.
I have a question to ask you because I think it's interesting that you said you didn't deal with plot holes for your first book, but you're dealing with plot holes for your second book. I know that your second book is a little closer to like a thriller, and your first book I think is closer to romance,
It's romance, yes,
right?
100%. Yeah.
Do you think it's because of the genre that you are experiencing that issue now?
I think, well, it's not a thriller as much as it is women's fiction, more in the pace of like Secrets and Lies.
Right.
Um,
With like a
so
twist in it,
yes,
right?
and
Yeah.
so I think it's that twist that, but the twist is what I started out with. That's the
Yeah.
first thing that is the idea that came to me ironically in the shower. The ending of that book. So for
Mhm.
me, I'm writing. I
Backwards.
had the ending.
Yeah.
And then the beginning just flew. And then when I got to the ending, the one that I had envisioned, that was where I was
Right.
like, oh, I got to fix something here.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think that just stepping away and looking at it very analytical with not my heart,
Yeah.
it does help.
Yeah.
So,
I think so too.
so another thing is to maybe help you is to revise in layers. Consider highlighting a problem areas throughout your story. Look for structure. Look for characters and emotion and tension points. And that was the other thing that I had the tension.
Mhm.
I had to figure out I can't have tension the entire time. So
Yeah.
I had to start pulling back. Have you done any of these kind of layering in your
Yes.
revising?
Yes. I do this often. I think this is probably I don't know. I love this part the most, but it's also the most time consuming. I do this one all the time where I'm constantly highlighting or reading through just a portion of the book that speaks to the character arcs or the tension. Like I know the book that I am writing now, I feel like I'm having a lot of the same problems that you're mentioning with your second book. Um, there is a mythology story in it, and it kind of like threads throughout, and I know that like I've highlighted every single mention of it because I want it to sort of be a reveal toward the end of the book, and I just
Mhm.
want little tiny seeds kind of building on each other throughout.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I use this method a lot.
Okay. What's another tip?
Um, Strengthen character motivation. I feel like this is something that I struggle with a lot at the scene level is that every single scene, your character needs agency. And so, what is motivating your character in this scene? One book that was tremendously helpful, actually two books by Lisa Crone. One is Wired for Story, and the other is Story Genius. Oh. And she talks a little bit about the psychology of characters and character motivation. And that was a huge help to me. I that's where I struggle with the most in terms of revision.
Oh, you're going to put those in our link because I think that would be amazing because I'm going to check that out myself.
Yeah, those are really good books.
Okay, so another thing is to cut and move and be ruthless. Readers like to fill in. Also, they like to fill in unintentional gaps you leave, so they become part of the story. Cut repetitive scenes. Okay, so this was something with my first book that I struggled with, was cutting repetitive scenes, and I thought it was important, but it wasn't. Someone once said, if you read a scene and nothing, it doesn't move it forward, you have to cut it. And I had so many of those kind of scenes. So again, take that really just critic in your head, listen to it, because sometimes even though your heart says yes, the reader's mind is not going to work. So that's something to really think about. Cut repetitive scenes, and then move anything else that would be served better somewhere else. And this is what I did in my first book. A scene that was in the second chapter of my first book ended up being the very ending of my book. I revisited it because at where it was in the book, in the second chapter, it didn't move the story forward. And it was just a scene that I loved, but it didn't move it forward. I revised it because my editor said, you got to cut it. And then when I put it at the very end, she was like, perfect. Yeah. So if you really believe in a scene, think about how you can change it up and it can serve better later in the story.
Yeah. I did that a lot with my first book too. There was a lot of moving of scenes because it's a nonlinear timeline that book is told in. And so it was like, okay, when would this memory be better suited for the readers, for the reader? When does the reader need to know this? Yeah. The other tip I wanted to give when you're talking about cutting a scene that you really love, but isn't really serving the book, I did that with my second book, and I give it away free as a bonus chapter. Oh, so that's like a free giveaway. It was a scene that had to do with a male character who was a minor-ish character, but I really wanted to kind of hear his voice, and I've given it away, and readers have really appreciated that. So, you could repurpose it too. If, don't throw it away. Put it in a separate file. Maybe repurpose it for something else.
That was the other thing I was going to say. I never throw away anything I've written. Yeah. So I put it into as I found out when I was moving my house, I am a hoarder. I don't throw away anything. But I'm not telling you, don't just toss it into the trash. Keep it in a folder, because I actually had a scene in my first book where the grass grows blue that I kind of changed it around, and I was able to use it in my second book. So never throw anything away, just, but it doesn't need to be in the final draft. Yeah. How about another tip, Donna?
I think, towards the end of your revision, this is where this tip comes in handy, is to check scene purpose. Every single scene should reveal a character, increase tension, move the plot forward. And as Hope mentioned, if you have a scene that doesn't do that, you really need to question whether it belongs in the story at all.
Yeah. And we have time for our last tip because we are running out of time. This is to sharpen your opening and endings. Does it hook and establish your tone and genre? This goes for the first chapter at the beginning and all the chapters that are going to follow. Also start with an action versus an explanation. Okay. So that's the other thing when you're starting out, because with my first draft, it was all an explanation. I was telling the reader instead of showing the reader and having the reader in that car with my character when she finds out her husband has most likely had an affair since he bought his, someone's a diamond bracelet that does not fit her. so I was just at my first draft I was telling them what was going on. And then I was like, no, they need to be in that car with her. They need to experience what she is feeling. And then when she confronts her husband. And I think that that's a mistake that a lot of new writers make, is that whole telling instead of actually showing.
Yeah. Yeah, early on, a book that I queried that I never ended up publishing and is on the shelf as still. It was about a teacher, and she wakes up to an alarm. And I had one agent write back to me and say, you should never begin a chapter with somebody waking up, to avoid those cliche beginnings of something. Always sit your character in the middle of a situation.
Yeah, I that's amazing advice.
Yeah.
Then also we got to talk about, does the end feel like it's earned, or is an earned satisfying ending?
Mhm.
Do the endings of each chapter invite the readers to turn the page to the next? Now that's tricky. I always find that the end, when I'm writing the end of the chapter, you want to give the reader the reason to not put down your book. They just
Right.
turn a page and just read one more scene.
Yeah.
How do you have like a formula how you end a chapter?
I don't have a formula in that I don't end every chapter like this, but I will sometimes end a chapter in the middle of a scene and like kind of leaving the reader with a question and having to read begin the next chapter to finish. I would end a chapter with something surprising that they want to know, like why is it surprising? Like why was that put there? So yeah, I kind of think, like, just like the openings, you don't want to begin with, I woke up today. You don't want to end with, and then she went to sleep. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Or the end of a situation.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that you keep your reader guessing and wanting more.
Yeah. And then finally, you can achieve this question with an unresolved situation or shift. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
so Donna, how long does it take you to revise a book?
I usually go through at least three passes to revise a book before I send it to beta readers. The first pass, as I mentioned, I do just read and take notes.
Mhm.
The second pass is when I'm, making big changes. The third pass, I'm usually layering and making sure continuity is working. And then I'll send it off to beta readers with a bunch of questions for them to look at and give me feedback on places where I think are problem areas.
Yeah.
And then I probably revise it one more time before I send it to the publisher.
Well, I will say, when I was moving, I found a copy. I had gone to Kinko's or FedEx, whatever it is now, when I very first wrote my book, before I'd even tried to query it. And looking at it, at first I was in shock because it was so different, because I, did so much of that telling instead of showing. But the more I looked at it, I was like, but the story is still there.
Yeah.
So it's overwhelming if you are a first time writer, or if you've written several books and you're looking at your first draft and you're like, oh, this is awful. A first draft is just that. It is just, you've done the hard work. You really have. You've got the idea. But where your book and your story truly comes to life is through all these revisions. And I know it seems daunting, but if you maybe just take one tip that we said today and just apply that and see how far that can go. And it's amazing how much revisions just bring your story to life.
Yeah. Yeah. And don't be afraid to try different things too, to see what works for you.
100%. Well, Donna, that's all the time we have now, but tell us, what is our next episode?
So our next episode is an author interview with an author that I have long admired, Patricia Sands. She writes romance and she writes all about Paris. So I love anything that has to do with Paris. So I'm excited to have her on.
Well, I cannot wait for that interview. And everyone, you can find us on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, YouTube, and on Instagram, or go to our website, authorstalkingbookish.com. So everyone, thank you so much for joining us. And until next time.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm Hope Gibbs.
And I'm Donna Norman Carbone. It's time for you to get to work.
We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks with another tip from your author friends.